Now, it's this phone call that has happened in the early hours of this morning between the US President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's bring in our US analyst Michael Ware for his thoughts on this. Definitely firming language from the White House, isn't it, Michael? Not just Biden's, but also Antony Blinken as well.
That's very much the case. In fact, out of this tragedy on Monday, when these 7 civilians were killed in this Israeli airstrike, there may be repercussions globally, way beyond the tragedy itself. In fact, in this conversation between the President of the United States and the leader of Israel, it seems that America is signaling that this tragedy may be a turning point in America's support for Israel's war in Gaza. In fact, the National Security Council spokesman, Admiral John Kirby, when he was talking about the discussion between the two national leaders, he said it was made very clear to the Israeli leader that if Israel does not start changing its conduct and its policies, that America will be forced to change its policies. You know, the White House has described this strike as outrageous and just say that not enough care is being taken and that the first priority should be protecting civilian lives.
So what's going to happen here when it comes to Rafah, when it comes to ending this war, Michael? Is Israel going to have to go it alone?
Well, they're going to be facing that decision because, you know, we saw in the UN Security Council last week, America put up a resolution that called for a ceasefire. In this phone call, President Biden called for an immediate ceasefire. So that would mean that they would want the war put on pause right now, perhaps permanently. Otherwise, it could create all sorts of entanglement in terms of weapons supplied to Israel, conditions put on their use, and ongoing American support in places like the United Nations. This is a serious juncture in American support for Israel. It remains, as the National Security Council said, our support is ironclad, but it would appear that this terrible incident may have made that conditional.
What about this other angle to the story today too? There are calls not just for the US, but the UK as well to stop sending weapons to Israel. Now, the UK doesn't send that much, not compared to the US anyway. Does this go anywhere?
Well, as I say, and Germany actually is Israel's second largest weapons supplier. Look, this is not going to stop America supporting the defense of Israel. In fact, in the same phone call, the two leaders talked about the threat from Iran against both of them and the region and how they still stand strong on that. And America this week is sending 2,000 more bombs and some missiles, and they're preparing to send some F-15 fighter jets to Israel. So, look, the support will continue. But as I say, there may now be strings attached. And with a member of President Netanyahu's own cabinet saying that he now supports an early election in Israel in September, which this cabinet member would most likely win, mate, the tensions here are enormous, and it's now up to Netanyahu to see how he reacts to this, the most intense pressure he's been under since the war began.
Yeah, well, it seems as though time is running out to get the job done here, it would seem anyway. Michael, good to chat as always. We'll talk to you again soon.